Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Welcome to Game Over Montreal. We're starting just as bad as the Montreal Canadiens. Long time no see, Mark. I don't know if you saw, but a very important thing happened today that is clearly going to take up most of the conversation on this show.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is single again.
Oh, wow. I don't know a single. Oh, I do. I know Shake It Off, which is like a banger. That's a great tune, by the way. The one thing I do know about Taylor Swift is you don't mess with Swifties. Like you just don't. Like I would start a land invasion of Russia in the winter before I'd go against Swifties. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's the one thing I know about Taylor Swift.
Yeah, obviously, the timeline is going crazy over Taylor Swift ending her relationship with some guy I've never heard of, because I didn't know that she'd been in a relationship for the last 6 years.
I don't want to be that guy, but man, do I not give a crap who's dating who. I just don't care. She could have been dating a curio cabinet for the last 5 years. If she's happy, she's happy. But I don't want to take that away. Again, sorry, Swifties. Never mind. I didn't say that. My bad. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Kay says we had a 10 times better start than the Habs. I mean, that's true. We've taken a shot already, we'll say, but only at Taylor Swift. No, not really. I like Taylor Swift. I like her music. It's enjoyable.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, the most enjoyable thing today was Andrew's kids got to do a cool Easter egg hunt. So that was probably the coolest thing that's happened today. And everyone needs to know about it. They did great. They nailed it. They got all the chocolate. And they got really riled up at about 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, we decided to do it this morning because I'm working tonight, so there wouldn't be like as much help with hiding stuff. And yeah, so we did it a day early. They got all hopped up on chocolate, and then before Mark went back to his house once his power went back on, one of them had a giant meltdown. And then
I did too, though. I did too on the bus. I had a meltdown on the bus too. I was leaving my buddies. I was leaving Miles and Dylan, and that's kind of rough. But hey, we're back in the thick of it, and all I need to say here is poor Samuel Montembeault.
Yeah, he deserved better. I think this is what's kind of bothering me about the way the season is ending, because objectively, I understand it. Like, if I was these players, I would also be tired and not willing to jump in front of Austin Matthews' shots at the end of the season. But man, Sammy Montembeault has stood in his head for this team all season long. Played last year injured for this team. You gotta not do him dirty like they did tonight. And I think, to be fair, there were a lot of the Leafs goals tonight that were just like full on. They got super lucky with the bounces. Like Austin Matthews' goal, like, yeah, sure, great pass from Marner, but off somebody else's skate straight to a stick. There was like Justin Barron kicked one in by accident. Like, there was a
Joel Edmondson was just like a wet paper towel. People were ripping right through him.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Like, the Leafs were great, the Habs were bad, but on top of that, I feel like the Leafs got some pretty nice bounces to get through Montembeault.
And we're gonna have to get to some ad copy in just a moment, talk to our sponsors. But as the Leafs fan just mentioned here, the Habs weren't very good. Well, I'm gonna tell you why the reaction the Leafs had tonight is a really bad sign for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. Like this is doom for them if they're focusing on this. But we'll get that. Just stick with us, and I'll explain to you why the playoffs are gonna be really bad for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, it's not. I can't say like. He's saying the Canadians should be embarrassed or we should be embarrassed. I mean, if this is what you're hanging your season on, if you're a Leafs fan, against a lottery team with, 9 or 10 guys out, okay. All right. I'm sure that's a feel-good moment for you.
There's still, I'll tell you this, and I know this for a fact, Toronto took it so hard that loss in the playoffs, and they've been thinking about it ever since. So this, no joke, the reason they're putting their best power play unit out at the end is because they're still pissed about 2 years ago. And if your focus is on the past, you're not going to be able to be prepared for the future. So you saw how Sheldon Keefe absolutely threw a tantrum that would have put Easter egg 9 a.m. tantrum to shame when they didn't get all the calls. Hey, listen, you got a million power plays. You won the game. It was easy, but you're still thinking about that playoff round. That is not what you want your coach to be thinking about. That is a lack of preparation. It's a lack of mental clarity, and it spells doom for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. Mark my words.
All right, let's hear from Sports Interaction, because get in on the action with Sports Interaction. Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Every hit, every shot, every goal from all your favorite teams and players with competitive odds, the best live in play. and more ways than ever to get into the game. Like Minute Madness, the exclusive game with so many opportunities to win by the minute. Download the app in Ontario with the QR code you see at the bottom of the screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. And if you or anyone you know is experiencing difficulty with gambling addiction, there are resources in the comment section, or not comment section, sorry, the description of this video, or if you're listening on the podcast, the description of the podcast to help you out. We want to make sure that you're not getting stuck into a vicious cycle that can ruin lives, all right? So I will say, Sports Interaction, by the way, tonight was supposed to be a special event for Mark and I in this show, and we were partnering with Habs Eyes on the Prize and Habs Fan TV. This was supposed to be our live event this year. It was supposed to be a big thing. A lot of folks bought tickets for this thing.
Yeah.
The NHL shut us down because, frankly, it was my fault. I phrased the way that we were going to do the event poorly, and apparently you can't put a ticket on watching an NHL game. So we're going to do something soon. We need to confirm some details, but we will do it properly this time and not get the NHL angry at us. And we will probably do it for the draft lottery. So that's May 8th. Circle it on your calendars. I don't have more details to give you at this specific moment,
but we'll have prizes. It'll be fun.
We will have prizes. Yeah. You know what? I do have more details. When this happens, we will have swag provided by Sports Interaction. If you want to get any of that, we will have special giveaways for people who live outside Ontario specifically. I guess they just decided to exclude Ontario because we always talk about Ontario in the ad copy, and they can get whatever they want whenever. But when we do the meetup, it will be serving Montrealers and Quebecers first and foremost. So hopefully with more runtime with the announcement now that we're going to do this, there will be more people who can make it in their plans to maybe travel in here. You know, if we'll try to get Scott Matla up from Buffalo, all that kind of stuff.
Scoot
Mattles. All right, I just want to go through the chat a little bit and welcome everybody here because, frankly, it is Fan Appreciation Night or viewer or listener appreciation night. So I want to welcome Claire. She's always here. Hi, Claire. Kay, Baka Wind, who I believe Baka Wind I've been communicating with on Twitter for like 10 plus years. He's been around forever. James Newman, Smart Investor, Commander Brantford, Tankovsky.
We got a heavy Leafs presence too, which is fun.
That's fine. They're always welcome.
I love it.
I mean, here's the thing. I tweeted about. Let's talk about the Leafs. Not in terms of like talking about them as a team or anything like that, but the reaction tonight when Joel Edmondson hit Michael Bunting.
What a dumb thing to do by Joel Edmondson, though. Like come on, like for a guy that's been pretty much useless since the trade deadline. What are you doing? That's not leadership. That's putting your team in a tough spot. You're already getting just dominated by Toronto. Like Toronto, if they really would have tried their hardest tonight, it would have been a 20-1 game. Let's be honest. So I honestly, that was anti-leadership by Joel Edmondson. Sorry, I just have to chime in there. I'm really disappointed with how he's been playing.
Yeah, I mean, he was not good. I think Ian Bovair, who was on the show last game, pointed out this was the third or fourth straight game where a team has just isolated Edmondson and
they go right for him.
Taken advantage of him and immediately scored. And the first two goals were 100% on Edmondson. The first
absolutely. They broke right through it. No, absolutely. And hey, shout out to Dina, who is in the Philippines, 10 a.m. in the Philippines right now. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone who's watching from crazy time zones, we especially appreciate you for tuning in. It really makes a difference, and we love you. Keck Shows is here. Andrew H. Let's dump and retain that $3.5 million contract. I don't know who he's talking about, but yeah,
3.5. That would be Hoffman. Is that not Hoffman?
Maybe Armia.
Armia. Oh yeah.
Armia. I mean, hey, he had a hattie last game. Put some respect on you all, Armia. He went from buyout to the top line.
I don't want to be mean, but man, does he ever fit? Like he's the living embodiment of his meme that like he's good once every literally like blue moon there, and then
he turns into Mario every 30 games.
And then ghosts there. He's like the meme there, like, yo, what up? I'm out. And then boom, he just disappears. And I'll say this, the second goal where Edmondson went chasing O'Reilly, and O'Reilly's so much faster. He got the puck over to where Matheson was before Edmondson was within 3 feet. Armia lost his guy completely. Like that was a bit of a, I feel really bad I know the Leafs are so much better than Montreal. Like this it's almost a globetrotter in terms of talent disparity, but the way he and Edmondson let Montembeault out to dry was just, that's tough to see. I'll be honest. Like, I'm pretty easygoing, but that was tough.
It was tough to see, and I think that's kind of like the take home from this game, and I think the take home from the few games before the Washington game, was that like the effort level wasn't enough, and I don't want to hang it too much effort. I feel like the talent level is just not enough as well. Like the Leafs ran roughshod over them anytime,
and it could have been worse. Do you not agree that it really, like, I feel like the Leafs didn't even try that hard to run roughhouse on them there, you know?
I think they tried in the first period. They took it easy in the second, and like anytime they turned it on, they were like bang bang goal, and it was like, okay, we don't need to push that hard.
Right? It's like playing you know, against when you're playing a video game against someone that's not so good and you're like, you have to try now. Although I will say this, the last time I played a video game was against my godson, who was 4.5. It was Mario Kart. And like the first race, I actually held back. I'm like, no problem. Then the rest of the GP, he was the Maple Leafs, and I was Joel Edmondson when I was playing Mario Kart versus my godson. So that was very humbling, very humbling.
Kay in the chat says that Chris Weidman was heated after the game. He said that they'll get what they deserve in a few weeks, but that was on bringing in amateur tryout goaltender Jet Alexander.
Who cares? That's amazing.
That's a good that's not trying to embarrass the Canadiens.
No.
I like Chris Weidman's testiness, but when the Oilers did that, it wasn't about embarrassing the opposing team either. That's doing something cool in a game that doesn't really matter, where you have control.
And they didn't do it with like 10 minutes left or anything, and it was 15 seconds. No. I really like Chris Weidman. He does show competitiveness, but that at that point, I think it's just you're embarrassed overall and you're latching onto something, right? Because there's nothing else to latch onto right now for the Canadiens.
And by that token, like, I would forgive Chris Weidman for being so upset about that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to hold that against him, that he's like overreacting, because this game, like, who's not upset in that locker room?
They should be. They really should be embarrassed. Absolutely.
But the fact is, they should be most upset at themselves. And you know, they're dealt a raw hand with all the injuries. That sucks. But yeah, let's talk about Sheldon Keefe, because we kind of got distracted there. But when Edmondson hit Bunting from behind, which was dumb, was obviously a penalty. I think they were already both going to the box anyway. But also, let's be clear, Bunting folded like a cheap ladder there.
I used to go hunting a lot.
Contact,
I used to go hunting a lot, and we call our bear traps, and they snap open quickly. That came to mind randomly. That's just an aside. Yeah.
Looked like he got shot. I mean, Edmondson's pretty strong, I guess, but I don't know.
Oh, it can't feel good, but there's a reason. Like, same thing with Gallagher when he made his bed. There's a reason the refs aren't a big fan of this man right here. I understand that's your job. You go out there and you piss people off. But once in a while, you're going to get a few over the refs, and they're going to talk about it. It's as simple as that.
And like in that situation, if I'm the Leafs, I also would not be very pleased with the Canadiens getting a power play out of that.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
But did you see how bad Sheldon Keefe lost his composure on the bench? Like,
that's why I'm saying, man.
F-bombs thrown at the refs. And my instant reaction, Leafs fans on Twitter were upset with me because I said, like, listen,
really? You, Andrew, you upset Leafs fans?
I know, right? I'm a professional at this point. But I was like, listen, this is like, hold your composure. Save your bullets.
You're cruising to the playoffs. Like there's no,
pick your damn moments. This is at this point in the game, it's 5-1 against a lottery team with half the lineup out to injury.
Mm-hmm.
They're not coming back to make this game competitive. You know, like, your biggest takeaway from this game, if you're the Leafs, is like Samsonov wasn't hurt, right? He looked like he might have been hurt in the second period. That's all.
That would have been so Toronto to lose their goalie against the Habs in a stupid game.
The fact that Keefe is on such a hair trigger with the officials, like, is it any surprise that these officials don't seem to like the Maple Leafs? And I totally agree, especially last year in the playoffs against Tampa, the Leafs got the short end of the stick. Like, there was some calls in that series that were either completely bogus or like missed calls on Tampa Bay that led directly to goals. I would have been
Pat Maroon, if I remember, was running around being a clown there during. Was it Pat Maroon?
Probably. It usually is, but I mean,
if it's clownery, Pat Maroon's involved in it, isn't he?
Yeah, like, I specifically remember one of the Lightning's goals in Game 7 was a Lightning interfered with a Maple Leafs defenseman in, like, it was like the neutral zone or at the opposing blue line, hauled him down, and it created an odd man rush that the Lightning scored on. I think that was actually the game winner. And then, of course, the Leafs tie it up and they get called on that pick play, which, listen, it was a penalty. Does it go uncalled 50 times a game? Yes. So I get that rage. But man, if you're on such a hair trigger as the coach,
Your brain is
calm
in the
down.
past though, right? That means
Yeah.
you're still pissed off about what happened in the past. And look, and I know I upset a lot of Leafs fans when I started with this. Hey, they're really focusing on the past. But if I'm the sports psychologist here, I'm saying, hey, we're looking here. Stop worrying about what happened in the past and how you feel disrespected. Don't forget, you also had 45 penalties tonight. Maybe you shouldn't flip your lid when you're winning against a lifeless team that's about to, pick top 5. But other than that, it's just you're putting your energy in the wrong area. Isn't that like Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment as a whole knows that this is so important for them to reach the second round? Like, I'll tell you one thing. They didn't want to help the Habs with their NFTs after the Habs eliminated them. They didn't want to put their name on it. So Toronto, they wanted to put a different subsidiary company just so the Habs wouldn't have Toronto on there. That's how annoyed. And this is coming from the GM from the president. That was the order. It has nothing to do with the game, but that's how stuck in their heads it was, that loss. So to me, honestly, and I'm not saying this with any malice, it's crazy to me that they're not just focusing on the future and saying, hey, listen, we are where we are now because of our talent, our quality, and if you have to fight the refs and all that, that's fine too, but there's no point in wasting energy on what's done, right?
No. And if you want to talk about in back channels to the league, I'm sure Kyle Dubas does.
Yeah, you do the footage, you take all the footage and you send it to him. That's fair. You do that. Yeah.
And you work the league in that way for sure. I think that's completely fair. It makes sense.
Pick your spots.
You have to pick your spots. You can't be stuck on Michael Bunting takes too many penalties that aren't really penalties. Sorry, but it happens to every agitator. Every agitator. How many goals has Brendan Gallagher got called back in his career? 30? And maybe half of those he actually did something because he earned that reputation. It sucks, but that's kind of the way the league works. So I get frustration with officials. I think I give officials a hard time, harder than most. But man, if you're a Leafs fan and you're under the impression that I would like them to fail, it's hilarious when they do. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's fun on Twitter.
They're a living meme. They're a living meme.
They are. Yeah. But however, I work for an organization that was built around the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have Game Over Toronto. I love our Game Over Toronto.
And I'll tell you this right now, and the NHL is better overall when the Leafs are good. And that's just a fact. That's just they're more important than Montreal in that respect. But by miles.
The money that rolls in if the Leafs are successful for every media organization is massive.
And the league itself just gets that bump up. Yeah. Yeah.
So I do want the Leafs to go forward. So seeing what's going on right now in this game, I just saw another instance of this team is incredibly mentally weak, and it that trickles down the way that the coach is. And I like Sheldon Keefe. I think he's a good tactical coach, really underrated.
Yeah, he is.
But the mental game there, not great.
It's supposed to be, water off a duck's back. That's essentially you have to work it. And even if, we can go back to when we had the referee, Dave Jackson, when he came on, he's like, no, referees don't hold anything against players or whatnot. We heard
on the Calgary Flames after Weidman hit a guy, and they went from the team with the most power plays in the league to the least for 2 years.
Or Brendan Gallagher on a hot mic, the guy essentially telling him to go F himself there, buddy. And also, let's remember when Habs fans were complaining that Gallagher wasn't getting enough calls, I think he was leading the league in penalties drawn. And who's leading the league this year in penalties drawn? Is it Michael Bunting?
It is indeed Michael Bunting.
Oh, okay. So what they're doing is they're looking at gift horse in the mouth. Listen, that's the role of an agitator, and you can go clip by clip and say it was unfair here, but these refs do not like getting embarrassed, and if you get one over them, they're gonna remember it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And Buddy Oak says that officiating has been bad the last couple of years.
Oh yeah,
I wholeheartedly agree.
But it's not targeted. It's just general incompetence.
I think it's targeted against certain players for sure. There's certain guys,
but not teams. There's no team.
Yeah, there's no team. Well, I think the Leafs last year did put a target on themselves. Do you remember when they talked about they put the refs' names in the locker room before the games, the players would know?
Oh, I didn't know that.
As if the Leafs didn't know who the refs were. It was very clearly it was put out on social media, and they were yeah, we're basically saying we know who you are. We're putting your name in our pregame speeches and stuff, and it's you guys don't try to embarrass them. That's not the way to get what you want.
And with the way I look at it, it's just you have to look at it as a whole, right? So I believe about 5 years ago, like Boston was not drawing any penalties and they were one of the top teams in the league. And you're like, hey, what's going on here? And that was clearly the Revs being like, you roughhouse the entire league for a while. We're going to cool it on you. And the Leafs, I think about 4 years ago, were drawing nothing, like just absolutely nothing. They were minus 60 in penalties and they were one of the top teams in the league. Now that is a statistical aberration. This year, Michael Bunting is drawing penalties at the exact same rate as last year. You know what I mean? So if you're going to make a referendum on it, it's got to be a bigger deal than that. And also Bunting's drawing 4 times more penalties than he did in Arizona. So, you know, maybe there's some unfairness there, but if you lose your mind on it, you're really not focusing on the right thing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Capital Gains says, to be fair, Keefe's composure in a playoff game might be different than Game 79 versus a tanking team. It is, but here's the thing, though. There's times where it's worth it to do that, and I feel like this is not a moment. Like, it doesn't make sense. It makes way more sense to blow your top in like a post-game media availability where you're you're putting things out there, you're controlled in what you're saying, you have a message, you stay on message, than just berating the officials in a game that means nothing. And also, the Lightning lost tonight, so like especially means nothing because it's not like the Leafs are even really fighting for home ice. They've got their spot secure.
Well, they already clinched home ice, but I will say this, okay? On the other side, the flip side, and we're gonna have to talk about the Habs here, but I like seeing a little bit of fire because, again, going back to 2 years ago, like it looked a little foolish when Austin Matthews was getting hauled down. Yeah, they got a power play, but he had a smirk on his face as his team got eliminated by a really bad team. I really like, and I know this is such a, people be like, oh, you boomer. Okay, sure. But I hated the lack of fire within the Toronto Maple Leafs. So maybe that's what he's starting to gear up a little bit and trying to get them a little more intense, a little more like, hey, come on, let's go. You're millionaires making a lot of money and there's a lot of pressure on us. So maybe that's what Keefe was trying to do there. And I would like to see a little more fire from the Toronto Maple Leafs, but what we saw tonight was a lot of talent, and that's what ends up winning games. Let's be honest.
Yeah, very, very true. And I will say, if you're here and enjoying the show, make sure you like the stream. It helps us grow. Make sure to subscribe to SDPN. And hey, if you really like SDPN content, if you're a Toronto fan, you can go check out Game Over Toronto. They're on right now as well. Lots of fun people there. Winnipeg
Great
Jets,
people.
all sorts of stuff. We've got lots of playoff content planned for you. And hey, if you really like F1, we've got a new F1 show too called Nailing the Apex with a former
NBA.
driver.
There's some NBA going on too as well.
Yeah, which is huge. So there's lots of stuff to talk about.
And before we get to anything else, though, I want to say something real quick. And the reason we say go check out the Toronto feed and all the other feeds is that Andrew, and he won't admit it, but he put together, and I've been in this industry for over 10 years, one of the most kick-ass groups of supportive people, open, diverse, and accepting. And it's been just such a joy to work with them. And I'll also say our bosses. So we're talking about Jesse and Adam and Steve. They have been so supportive, but also they trust us. They trust us to do our own thing. And that's the way you build a really strong team. So shout out to the bosses. And also, Andrew, I know you're never going to compliment yourself, but you assembled just an amazing team. Like, I'm coming from a really toxic workplace into this, and it's just blowing my mind how great these people are. So please go ahead and check out the other feeds because we have a lot of really, really good people. And unlike me, most of them weren't born in the 80s. So they're a little more up to date with you know, the memes. Because the first time I heard meme, I called it a meme. So I'll just leave it at that.
Oh my god. Yeah, this is the last thing we'll say on the Leafs, and then we're gonna be more focused on Habs talk and talking to our friends in the chat here. But
yeah, because we're so happy about our Habs community. Honestly, you're all the best. But yeah, go ahead.
There was a question following up on one of the most recent SDP shows, because Steve had me find some numbers for him about Michael Bunting and basically like what's changed for him this year. And like, he is drawing fewer penalties since December 20th when a ref shoved him into like the Zamboni.
Hardly though, man. He's still top 10 in the league since then. I'm just saying, like,
he's seventh. He went from first to seventh, and he's taking more penalties now. So the big question,
more coincidentals, is that what it is?
Both. But like the big question that everyone had was, is he taking is he creating fewer power plays because of the coincidentals, right? And I didn't want to go through every single game and track that because I have a life and I don't really care about the Leafs that much. But someone on the Discord did, but their math was terrible. So Steve showed it to me, and yeah, you can check out the SDPN Discord. I think there's a link to that as well in the video description, but they basically did like a plus minus on his penalties and then included the coincidentals. And for until December 20th, he was +5 in terms of the like
Strong
minus the
taken.
coincidentals. He created +5 power plays, and since then he's been, not including this game, or I guess what day was this? That was like yesterday or 2 days ago. So not including the last game and a half, I guess, or 2 games. He was -1. So it seems like a big swing, but it's a swing in 6 power plays. It's
We've
for
already spoken way too, like the world as an entirety could go without talking about Michael Bunting's drawing penalties for another 50 years, and we'll have already spoken about it too much. Let's be honest, man. And I love my friends in Toronto, but whenever there's something there that they notice, it becomes a gigantic referendum. Look, this kind of stuff happens to every single team, and you can go through footage of every single player and say he deserves more here and there. We're talking about one of the guys that still draws the most penalties in the entire league. So,
100%, and he is a good player, although maybe he's in decline. He is pretty old.
Hey man, but that's what, 23 goals now back to back, man. Jeez.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a very good player. All right, we got a request here from Trizak, loyal viewer for
Love
our
me some
live
Trizak, who I
shows.
keep calling Trinka, and sometimes I call Trinka Trizak.
And Trinka's here too.
I'm old. I'm sundowning. What can I say?
Trinka says that they loved listening to all the other game overs in the playoffs last year. I mean, I had so much fun producing for Calgary last year where I wasn't on camera and just watching them do their magic. We'll have lots of cool stuff this year. Mark, this question is for you from Trizak. Says, please take some time to soapbox on Kovacevic. Scored tonight. Personally, don't see him as more than a number 7 guy, but I know you see more. So
hold on, I'm just gonna boot him from the chat
adding
real quick.
something to that, Mark. I'm gonna ask you: would the Winnipeg Jets have clinched already if they still had Jonathan Kovacevic?
Yes, absolutely. They would have actually clinched the Western Conference. Okay, first of all, can we get? First, we need to give Kay moderator powders in here so she could have banned Trizak for me already. Like that's like we give Robert the nights off because we can pretty much handle it, but I think Kay needs to be in charge of my pettiness. The official
Kay's gonna end up muting me when I talk.
Yeah, she's gonna get rid of both of us eventually. I will say this: someone mentioned, yeah, listen, we agree that Chris Weidman's comments after the game were pretty. That was him just being embarrassed by the Habs, by their own performance, and I love that they put Jed in. I absolutely love it. Okay. Jonathan Kovacevic right now is a top 3 player in the Montreal Canadiens for relative expected goals for. The 2 other players are Brendan Gallagher and Raphaël Harvey-Pinard. After him, it's Jordan Harris. So just give you an idea of his impact for the Canadiens. He is the top defenseman in terms of making a positive impact this year. You will say he is sheltered. I will say that is bullshit. He is less sheltered or more sheltered than a guy like Gouli, who he got savalled hard, and I'm using it as a verb. He got savalled hard at the beginning of the year. Then he got Edmondson, which is just like rough 1-2 right there, But Harris and Kovacevic, when they were paired together, were not sheltered. They were taking second defenseman, second pairing. They were getting not great starts, and they were doing fantastic. So the Habs haven't had the luxury of keeping them together because they've had more injuries than like a 12th century plague this year. But next year, Harris and Kovacevic, friendship, re-engage because they play so well together, and they're my new Petrie and Kulak. I'll say Harris is probably the Petrie in that, but Kovacevic is still signed for a really cheap deal for 2 more years. So I look at this guy as someone who came into a situation with a new coach, new teammate, new rink, new everything, and did quite well. He outperformed statistically all of his teammates. So what we will say here is hopefully, and I'm gonna hopefully Trizak understands, but it was Trinka, wasn't it? I want to make sure I get it wrong.
It was Trizak. Trinka.
Okay, well, hopefully Trinka gets it wrong, gets it right next time. But Jonathan Kovacevic is basically the type of guy that you want maybe on a 3rd pairing, but have 2nd, but that will give you fantastic value. It's all about your return on investment, and the guy's taking whatever% of the cap. So he's bringing much better value than obviously Savard and Edmondson, and better value than Jack Eye. He's a little older, so that's fine. But essentially, the Habs let Winnipeg pay to develop him and just scoop them up. Right-handed defenseman too. Don't forget the Habs have very few of those throughout the entire system. So there will be no Jonathan Kovacevic slander. And there will be lots of Jordan Harris praise, because I'll say this, the Habs are a much better team when he's in the lineup too.
Yeah, 100%. I really like both Harris and Kovacevic. I think Kovacevic has been kind of the forgotten guy this year. We talk all the time. I
Mhm.
mean, less by us, I think, Mark, but more in traditional media, who have been really harping on the Canadians using so many rookie defensemen, and for good reason, for sure. But it's always like, oh, Caden Gooley and Justin Barron and Jordan Harris and Arbor Xhekaj, and also this other guy, Jonathan Kovacevic. But Kovacevic's performance in the role that he's been in has been spectacular
Absolutely. And
the entire season long.
like I was telling you, okay, and this is not to be harsh, but just my pure analyst, you know, when we were watching him in the Washington game, I'm like, man, if this guy had a little more natural talent, because he genuinely isn't a naturally gifted person, and like I know about that, you know, sometimes God doesn't give with both hands, but he's obviously good enough to be in the NHL. He doesn't have that talent that some of the others have, but he's got the intelligence and he can process the game much better than anyone else. That's why him and Jordan Harris make such a good pairing. They're both super smart.
Yes, they are. I mean, I think that's the main thing with Kovacevic. It's like if you just had like a tiny bit of shooting talent, like we talked about, he's probably scoring 7, 8, 9
Yeah.
goals a year.
Yeah,
His
and he's joining the
instincts are
rush
great.
like Petrie used to, just like Petrie. Like, no joke, I mistake him for 26, but good point here by hold on, where are we going here? They missed Xhekaj tonight by Tankovsky. This was one of those nights where Arbor Xhekaj, I don't know if you could, like, Steve Simmons or not. Oh, sorry, big Wayne, don't hurt me. That was the biggest
Oh
insult I could have
God,
ever done.
that's an
Please,
awful.
I'm moving.
After Steve Simmons wrote that awful column using Wayne Simmons as a cudgel as well.
Oh God! Blah. Sorry, we're gonna wipe all that. But Wayne Simmons is still one scary motherfucker. I'm gonna put it that way. Like for 185 pounds, I still remember when Subban saved Pacioretty's life, and he's like, no, you don't fight Wayne Simmons. You know what I mean?
No.
So, obviously Xhekaj's a bit bigger and a bit younger, and if he had a healthy shoulder, I don't know if it would have gone well. That being said, I always warn people, don't like abuse of Xhekaj because he's young and he's not there to get rid of all the insecurity that built up with Habs fans for years. But this was a game where Arbor Xhekaj would have been useful.
Yeah, and it might have just been to settle things down, right? It might not even be necessarily a fight. It's just that his presence there kind of deters the Leafs from running around like they were in the first period there, and maybe Pizzetta doesn't have to fight because Pizzetta didn't seem prepared to fight Simmons. Like I don't know if he just didn't do his research, but it was clear that Simmons just shocked the heck out of him when he.
Well, it's just that Simmons is a much better fighter. Let's be honest. I love Pez.
He's capable of fighting with his left hand as his main, right? I don't know if he's actually ambidextrous,
but don't forget
Pizzetta, orthodox stance to unorthodox.
Pizzetta immediately went. He wasn't going to throw. He showed that he was trying to grip and hold, right? So once you do that, that means Simmons is like, okay, this guy already showed me what he's doing, so I can move around it and ambidextrous. So yeah, he put himself in a defensive position by trying to keep him close, and Wayne Simmons can toss minivans over, you know, his head with just one arm. So that was a big mistake. Someone asked here, do we think who has the higher ceiling, Jordan or Jonathan? It's Jordan Harris. That's the thing. That's the thing with Kovacevic. I don't know how much higher it can get. But
he's 25, he probably is what he is. He might have like some levels of his game that go up a little bit, kind of like Josh Anderson this year or Mike Hoffman this year, where working with the skills coaches can add layers to his game. But I think we'll see more like rising tide lifts all boats, where if Jonathan Kovacevic is your 6th or 7th defenseman on the team, you're very much laughing.
And it's very similar to kind of how Brett Kulak came up in the organization and became very useful at that same age for a long time. Now, to go back to Pizzetta, I'll tell you this. He probably didn't want to, but knowing that it's Simmons pretty much his last game in the NHL, I'm sure he obliged, and he knew that he was going to get rocked there, you know. So good on him for doing that. Michael Pizzetta is genuinely a really good guy. I'll vouch for that. And I know I've said it 1,000 times. I love Michael Pizzetta.
Yeah, and we should also mention that on the Canadiens' only goal of the night, the one highlight of
Mike Matheson, man.
Mike, well, I mean, clearly Mike Matheson, but also Nick Suzuki hit 40 assists for the 2nd straight season. First Hab to do that since PK Subban did it in 3 seasons straight.
That's way back super sad, though. That's one of those like
16. Yeah, it's really sad.
This season's been all about like sad records where they're like, oh, they haven't done this since Odie Cleghorn did it, you know? Like it's all you know, like pre-World War I stats that are getting broken. Never a good sign. Someone asked, does Barron need another year in Laval? I'll do a quick take on this. I was super impressed when he came back from Laval, and obviously that's confidence right there. he has so many brain farts when he gets the puck behind the net and he's pressured. That's the thing. Like his brain kind of scrambles when he has any kind of pressure. And even though there's nice outlets, he just kind of, recedes. So I would say, yeah, at this point, you probably want him back in Laval for the full season. Then maybe not full season, bring him up. But yeah, there's some work to be done on decision making for Justin Barron.
I'm going to disagree with you there on needing to go to Laval. I don't think he goes back to Laval. I think he needs fine tuning in the NHL. I think his big thing right now, like if he's in the American Hockey League, he doesn't struggle with that decision making, right? He
No,
has
no,
the
not at
time and
all.
space
Not at
to
all.
do that.
Yeah,
He needs to
you're right.
continually get used to
The
NHL
experience.
speed.
Yeah,
I think he needs
that's
to be
actually
playing with a partner that also complements him. He can't be dragging around Edmondson, and I don't know if Matheson's the best partner for him either, because Matheson, well,
too chaotic,
he's good defensively. I
but
think
he's
better than he
chaotic.
gets credit for. He's very
You
chaotic,
need
and
you
I
need a
think
smart.
Barron
Well,
is
okay, you need a
also
guy that processes the game very quickly with Matheson.
yeah, and like Barron is also a little bit chaotic at times because he does push things offensively more than I thought that he would at any stage of his career.
Mhm.
So I think keeping them separate makes more sense. So
Yeah,
I'd like to see, because obviously we someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Kay, saying that Lane Hudson is going back to college. Like I don't know who thought that he was going to come in this year, but he needs at least another year in college, maybe two. Uh,
yeah.
if Cale Makar can do 2 years in college, so can Lane Hudson.
Oh,
It's really
absolutely.
not a rush.
And
But
people haven't been watching him. It's kind of like Mayu when people are like, "Oh my god, all the offense is great." You haven't been watching the games. Lane Hudson has defensive issues. He has defensive woes, like significant ones,
he's 18.
not bad ones. Yeah, 18 in the NCAA. Also, there was a good comment here. I forget, it was Buddy Oak, I believe, mentioning when that's why Steve Simmons is in this a little bit for the fun before he went with Pez there. And and the funny thing is that he can go southpaw, man. He's just a smart fighter, but he's like, hey man, watch the stick. Like, I want to fight out of this. I want to get this, make sure you don't run into the stick. That was a pretty cool moment from Wayne
Yeah.
Simmons telling Pezzetta to keep his head down, I get in that case.
Yeah, I think, but my point was basically he needs more of a stable partner who doesn't act as an anchor. I'd love to see Barron and
Gooley,
next year. That's the second pairing.
because Gooley's going to
Barron,
become your really smart, like your guy that like plays with the guys that have training wheels on, because he's just so smart and he can do it offensively. And the key part here, I'll say he's better than Matheson at getting back in his zone real quick. Like his Goalie has a way to join the rush, be the first guy in, first guy back, and that's going to be such a boon for the Canadiens going forward.
Yeah, so I think that's what makes the most sense. They have a lot of combinations that they can play with on defense. Like let's be real, they have so much talent there. Not elite talent, I would say. They don't have a bona fide number one unless Lane Hudson hits that stride, right? If he can grow another inch or two,
I don't think it's
helpful.
Okay, I'll say this: it's not the growing; it's that there's three things that he struggles with. Is sometimes when the game's on the line, and like he was really Boston probably shouldn't have been that high in the rankings and gone to the Final Four, but he tends to put everything on his back, and once he spins around the offensive zone 3 times, that's where the decision making gets a little hectic. So that's very simple.
Because he's dizzy, Mark. Leave him alone.
Yeah. No, but seriously, that's very simple, and he got better as it went. His gap control. So this is going to sound stupid, but his lateral skating, I don't know why everyone harped on it, is actually pretty good. Sometimes he gets himself out of position and has bad gap control because he's moving too fast. So one of the things that Adam Nicholas wanted to work on him with was when the guy enters the zone, you can keep your speed up, but you can also keep good gap control. And that was it. And thirdly, sometimes he loses his guy in his own zone. So these are things that he can work on for even maybe another 2 years in the NCAA. And I know a lot of people are going to get upset with that, but man, you got something really good here. He's breaking records. He's had one of the best seasons in the NCAA history. No rush. Don't forget the contract slides. So, I would even be willing to bring in Adam Engstrom first to kind of patch that for a year and leave Lane Hudson there. He's got a lot to work on in defensive zone, but that's so normal. And as Adam Nicholas told me, he's like, man, I have so much granite to work with. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, can you just talk normal for 1 second? Yeah. I'm like, man, talk to me normal for your vernacular is so out there. But anyways, he's like, it's so much easier when a guy has all that talent to get it down to what you want than having to put other pieces on, which is what he was trying to say, which, yeah.
And frankly, it's true. And the fact, Lane Hudson's not going to be hurt by playing in college longer. He's probably a guy that will benefit from it more than most would. the Canadiens are not in a rush. Like, I don't think they're a playoff team next year. I think if they can stay healthy, I think they're like an 80, 85 point team. So it might bring them out of the bottom 10, maybe push them into like where Detroit is kind of this year. And that's if Montembeault doesn't revert back to like the previous season performance, right? Like, I'm talking about if the goalies
my feed
remain
is
really
lagging.
good.
Mike. Hold on.
Yours is lagging? Yeah, I can still see you fine. So
Oh, it's going really fast now.
I was catching up.
Oh no,
Is that
it went
MDG
so
internet?
slow. It's like I was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It was like it went so slow and then it went. Yeah, someone mentioned I have the same accent, the same accent as Kevin Owens. Je suis francophone. Moi, je suis un francophone d'Ontario en fin de compte. Donc moi, ma langue maternelle c'est le français. Puis j'ai appris l'anglais par après. So that should clear it up.
Perfect. A lot of people in the U.S. are saying Hudson is overhyped and played in a weak Northeast division. Any thoughts about that? There's a lot of people
okay,
who
bullshit. The
say that.
ECH
It's not true though.
Bullshit.
Like
that's like saying the Q now has no defense. Guess what? There's been higher scoring in the OHL and update your shitty preconceived notions. The most NHLers, the highest quality NHLers are coming out of the ECHE, like AC. The Hockey East has been quite good for quite a while now.
Well, this is the first time I've ever heard of like BU in Boston College being a bad division. Like, come on. It's not.
No, it's a very common thing, especially Minnesota. Like Minnesota and Boston, they hate each other. And this goes back like a long time ago, especially when the NCAA wasn't a developmental league. You know, there's just dudes beating up on each other. But no, that's ridiculous. And if you look at strength of conference overall, their NHLE, like the algorithm, it's very, very similar at this point. If it's updated, if it's an old NHLE algorithm, then yeah, you know. But it's funny to hear that. And I absolutely do disagree. But then when you look at teams like, for example, I don't know what the score is right now. The final two teams, and I always mess it up, but Quinnipiac.
And they're like a wagon this year, aren't they?
Man, they were so good. Like they when they played, let's say Harvard looked like shit. So like there was a big difference there. So there is some of that discrepancy in talent, but stop saying that it's a fluffers league there. There's the most NHLers come out of that conference. So that says something.
Yeah, it says a lot.
It's 2-2 apparently.
2-2 now. So they were up 2-0, dropped it. Sebastian,
no, you didn't. Someone they're asking.
Probably going to win the Hobie Baker next year. I could see that.
Well, let's be like, oh no, they're gonna get angry at me again. But Matthew Knees, well, anyways, he was the third best scorer on his line. Like that was silly. But I actually would have sent Devon Levi would have been my third pick to go there to actually be part of the Hobie Baker. Yeah, so it's 2-2 right now apparently. Oh, overtime's about to start. No, Essie, you didn't get told off in French, because if you get told off in French, it becomes like a song. It's like, hey, mon esti de tabarnak de maudit merde, ça c'est mon esti de cul, and it's more like wavy. It's more like a dance.
Yeah, Claire's translating for you in the comments as well, saying you're a Franco-Ontarian.
Yeah, that's it. I'm from Ontario, but in the morning I have my eggs on toast side by each. There it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see Adam Wild tweeting, if you want to be paranoid as a Leafs fan, this could be the loss that gives the Canadiens Bedard. Wouldn't that be hilarious?
Well,
but
okay,
because like even if Leafs fans, like obviously Leafs fans don't want the Canadiens to get Bedard, but imagine how
that'd be so good though. That'd be so good for
rivalry if it's Matthews versus Bedard. Are you kidding? It would be amazing, Mark. It would be amazing.
It would, and again, better for the league. And there's so many people that like the Leafs and the Habs. It's essentially, in The Simpsons, when he's like, this is my friend Milhouse, he's my best friend due to geographical convenience. And that's what it is. That's what the rivalry is. It's geographical convenience. But let's be perfectly honest, there's no rivalry there, and that kind of sucks, man. So playoffs make rivalries, good players make it to the playoffs. That would be absolutely fantastic. However,
I think there's ironically more of a rivalry now than there has been a long time between Montreal and Toronto, because of that playoff series.
Okay, yeah, but that was such a weird playoff series. I think Habs fans just won and they like moved on. So I don't know. I don't see it that way. But yeah, you're right. That's more recent. I still say there's more of a rivalry with Ottawa.
Did Habs fans move on though? How many times do you see it was 3-1 on Twitter on an average day?
Oh yeah,
I see.
Well, that's different. Just that's the thing though. I hunted rabbits for so long because I knew where they went. I knew how to catch them every single time. Okay, with those calais. So yeah, baiting is different. That's a completely different thing. But It would be fantastic. And if not Bedell, you're talking about Adam Fantilli, you're talking about Mishkov, you're talking about Leo Carlson, like Will Smith, Zach Benson. This is a really good draft. And this game tonight with Arizona beating Anaheim, which is a really bad team, that pushed the Habs back into fifth. Now, as Andrew mentioned right before the show, we're talking about a 1% difference here. So Habs fans, even if they win out, Kante Taton there, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. They'll have roughly the same odds as Arizona.
Yeah, it's 1%. I saw a bunch of people on my timeline freaking out about like score watching in Arizona. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy whatever joy the last couple of games of the season can bring to you. And I will say, as we're getting close to the end here, I'm sure that most Habs fans who are watching the show, watching in general, would agree when I say I'm very ready to not watch this team for a few months. But at the same time, just like last year, like I'm starting to get a little bit emotional about kind of not saying goodbye, right? But like saying see you later to all our friends in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll have the draft lottery thing,
and we're gonna try to maybe do a few things during this. We'll see, no promises, but we're gonna
like I wanted to do things last summer and I just never got around to it. I had other things that happened in my life, like trying to build this game over situation.
But some live events would be really, just because we actually get to meet everyone. And one of the cool things that happened this year is that the community kind of came together and like, yeah, the Habs suck, but we're gonna have a lot of fun. And our chat has been just so lively. Like, it's part of the show by far, So the only disappointing thing is if we go a live show, I guess I have to wear pants.
No, you can wear shorts. It's getting
because I don't do pants when we're on Zoom. I'm sorry, it's just not a thing that I do. Okay.
Nobody needs to know that though. Nobody needs to know that. Yeah, Trizek says it's not about the odds, it's about a guaranteed spot. Fifth last is guaranteed top 7 pick. I think the thing is, Trizek, I don't think there's a big gap between 7th and 8th in this draft. Like
actually.
It all comes down to who the organization values too.
Because you're looking at Benson and Will Smith, and I really want Will Smith to end. And I'm so lame, but I really want him to land in Philadelphia. Let's be perfectly honest. That's what it should be. But
let's also say, like, the Canadiens have another first round pick. They can move up a couple spots. And
we're gonna have to really get into talking about our awesome community. But obviously the Habs and the Jets have talked. So I know if Liz Hood is listening from Winnipeg, Game Over Winnipeg, I'm sorry, but they've talked about trading Dubois, before either this summer or at some point with an extension, and that first round pick would be in play. And I'm thinking Winnipeg probably wants more, but hey, if you get dangled a first round pick, Winnipeg can grab that, turn around, flip it for something else, right? That's like a big name, like first round pick. So yeah, that might happen.
And I think fans would be more receptive to that now that the Florida Panthers are pretty much guaranteed to make the playoffs right there. It'd be pretty unlikely that they're going to lose out now. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
They're on a hot streak. I will say, like, if the Bruins end up in that second wildcard spot, if I were the if the Panthers end up in that second wildcard spot, if I was the Bruins, I'd be a little bit worried.
No. If I do the Bruins, honestly, I'd be in Vegas smoking cigars till 5. No one's. It's going to be the Bruins and the Avalanche in the final, and I'm going to predict a super boring playoffs, and this sounds
Bruins
terrible.
Aren't making the final. I'm going to stick with what I've been saying about them for all year. They are a great team. They are also the luckiest team in the entire NHL this year.
Yeah, but Lekkonen's going to come back and just make it all better, baby.
Yeah, I like that they're going to win the cup, but I could see a team like Florida getting hot at the right time coming in.
They've had good underlings all year. They've been a good team all year.
Yeah,
absolutely. But come on. Boston's about to beat the Habs 76 record, Andrew. I think
I know.
It's not fair to compare those records because like the Habs did it while smoking cigarettes between each period, but it was a different setup. There's no, overtime wins. That wasn't a thing. But man, this Boston Bruins team is terrifying. So we'll see how that goes. But I just get a sense that the Avalanche will all come together and they're having big names will come back for the playoffs too. So that should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, Buddy Oak says not if Makar is out the rest of the season. Is he really at risk of being out the rest of the season?
Really?
No, that's
because but they did mention he had now it's a lower body, so it's not the concussion. Which you want to talk about bad refereeing? They didn't even get a freaking minor when he got concussed on that play. Like,
yeah, no kidding.
Zach
Quinnipiac just won over Edmonton in the chat saying it's the Oilers. That's the other thing about the
They've
Avalanche
been the
this year.
best team by far since January, right?
I think it's the Oilers' year this year. I
And
really do. And I know
just
we're supposed
to
to be talking about the Habs, but I'm just kind of going by the chat because I want to interact with the chat. I do think this
Oilers are
is the
so good.
Oilers' year. That
They're so good.
Ekholm trade changes everything.
Everything. Because for the longest time, Edmonton were like, they got rid of Petrie and like, oh man, really weird. We need a guy like Petrie. You need a guy that can launch the attack. Obviously, Ekholm is probably better at this point. And yeah, they're having. I remember I asked you yesterday. I'm like, is McDavid really at like 135 points? Or like, no, he's at 150. I'm pretty sure. I'm like, no.
He hit
And
150
Ryan Nugent
today.
Hopkins, most casual 100-point season ever. Just glide to 100 points. So yeah, I we'll see in the playoffs though, because last year talking about the refereeing and all that. I hate blaming refs, but man, that was a raw deal what the Oilers got. They're so good, they're so talented,
That was
and
the
they
year
got.
before the
Oh,
the
was
one
it?
against Winnipeg where there was like 3 Jets just riding
Ça, c'était de
McDavid's
la
back
bouillie pour des
every
chats,
shift.
là, that, yeah.
That was embarrassing.
That was
frankly.
embarrassing, and you're hurting your best product. Like, I don't want to get into other sports, but other sports, you'd have a guy like Michael Jordan would come out and just absolutely destroy the refs, and then they'd listen. That would not happen here. So McDavid, it'll be good for the NHL if McDavid gets a couple cups too. Let's be honest. That's like, you want to build legends. This guy might be is the most talented player in the history of hockey. You got to get that silverware. And I know it's a team thing, but that's how legends are built, right? If not, he goes down as like a Marcel Dion. And that's not to try to insult him, but part of the legend, the mythos that's being built has to come with silverware. And that's not up to McDavid. That's up to the rest of the team. So what you mentioned about Ekholm is so great, because I'd look back at Gretzky and I'm like, man, he was surrounded by a ton of talent too. Like, we're talking about the Yari Currys of the world and just like the not, I was going to say Phil Housley, Paul Coffeys of the world. And it was just
even Michael Jordan was surrounded by a hell of a lot of
they weren't winning
talent
until
in
they brought in
Chicago.
Pippen. They stole
Right?
Pippen from the Knicks, and they're like, man, we need you. You know, like, you come here, because they were getting stonewalled. Yeah, absolutely. So no, you need to surround it. So it's good to see. And that's a good point by Zach, man. I think we might be sleeping on the Oilers a bit, because they've been better than the Bruins for a couple months now.
16-2-1 with Ekholm. That's absurd.
What, like, and their relative, they're probably, their XG is probably in the 60s or something stupid.
Even before the Ekholm trade, I believe they were second in the league in all situations expected goals for. And they also have like the best power play in NHL history. Like, just straight up best power play in NHL history.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Bakowin talking about real quick question. Yeah, we'll get into the chat. Sorry, because
yeah, for sure,
we're so excited here. I don't know if he's gonna go back or not, but that's someone that the Habs should probably be keeping an eye on for goalies.
Because I'd like, because
it's Parrots. Parrots, yeah. Because I wanted them to look into Petrillo actually, and he ended up, I believe, Buffalo had him, and obviously they had Devon Levi, so they traded him. I wouldn't mind going. I don't love investing in goaltenders, but NCAA free agents, yeah, give it a shot. Yeah. You know, might as well. They're already mature, and I don't know how good Jakub Dobesh will be, but I wouldn't mind adding a little bit to that. I love Dobesh. I'm probably like his biggest booster, but little worse, a little bad compared to last year's overall stats. Big guy, you know, calm and all that. I don't know if he has that starter potential. So yeah, bring in more reinforcements. And if you can do it in the NCAA, you do it in the NCAA.
Yeah, I could be wrong about this. Buddy Oak says, I have a strange feeling that Boston's going to blow a tire and lose.
No.
I mean, I think part of that, like, for me as well, is like...
That's wishing. Like, that's hateful wishing. Hateful wishing.
Here's the thing, though. These are the signs that I'm looking at. When's the last time a team that went as all out in the salary cap era as the Boston Bruins have this season actually won anything? The two teams that have come close are the Washington Capitals in 2010, out in the first round, and the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2019, out in the first round, swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets of all teams.
But yes, however, they did go on to win 2 cups. But you're right, yeah.
They did win after, but the thing is, also, Boston is one of the oldest teams in the league.
Yeah, but like, Bergeron doesn't count because he actually is like a symbiotic creature sent from the future to just dominate hockey.
However, David Krejci has, without really anybody noticing, been terrible this year. He's like the luckiest player.
But he's also like 39 or 40 years old, isn't he?
Yeah, he's old. Their center line is old. And if Bergeron gets hurt, it's David Krejci, who's been terrible, but had great on-ice percentages. And Pavel Zacha, who's had a career year after being pretty much terrible his whole career in New Jersey. So I just think there's a lot of signs for Boston that things can go off very easily. And when you're an old team, look at Pittsburgh and Washington, two oldest teams in the league. It's tough to keep up. It's a long schedule. The playoffs are an
However,
even bigger grind.
can I be the old school like hockey guy that's like they know how to win? Andrew, back
But
in
do
my
they?
day, we
They're the losingest team in NHL history in the final.
yeah, well, okay,
Eh?
but this is
Eh?
awesome. That's because of Montreal, obviously, and also because Don Cherry is probably the worst coach in the history of coaching. But
Well, they lost
no,
to St. Louis. They lost to
yeah,
Chicago.
they lost to Glenn Hall. That's who they lost to. Let's be perfectly honest. But oh, you
No,
mean
I
like
mean
recently?
now.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, no, no one's stopping Boston, man. Like, although as Kay mentioned, we got to bring up our haterade. So yeah, Boston's getting first round. Who are they playing in the first round? Is it Florida that they might line up with?
It'll be Florida or the Islanders or the Penguins. One of
No
those
Ben
three.
Sherratt. Florida has a chance.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think
There,
the
you want me to
Penguins or
step up my
Islanders have a
haterade? Here
chance.
we go. Here we go. And you missed my Joel Edmondson your segment earlier because yeesh.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's
Trinket says that Matheson had a classy comment on the E-Bug situation. So I'm glad it wasn't like a team whole thing being upset about the E-Bug getting in there. It was just
well, I
Chris
don't.
Weidman.
Yeah, I mean, Matheson isn't or Chris Matheson. Oof, that's some kind of weird prototype never considered for mass production. But I really don't get that from Weidman, man. That was such a cool story. I almost tweeted out like I love this, but I realized half-times were probably like, why don't you shut the fuck up for 2 seconds? So I didn't put that out. But yeah, the E-Bug thing was great. The E-Bug thing was great. Absolutely. I loved it.
100%. All right. Before we close things out tonight, if there's any questions that you guys have about the whole season, doesn't matter, next season, 5 seasons from now, hit us up because this is your night. We got to tell you how much we appreciate every single person that
Love it.
watches this show, that listens to this show,
We're
that
lucky.
interacts with us live, that tweets at us. Like launching this show, it was the worst possible timing.
What you mean? Because the Habs won 12 games in 2 years?
Pretty much. Like the Canadians go to the Stanley Cup final, and then everything completely falls apart. Marc Bergevin has the shit summer of all summers, and all of a sudden this team is terrible. I mean, how many shows did we do last year before they got a win? I know you weren't able to do them last year, Mark, because you had a different job, but man, it was very rough. And everyone who's stuck with us through all that, like, I can't tell you anything more than I absolutely love you.
No,
And I can't
absolutely.
wait to put faces to names when we do a meetup for the draft lottery. We are going to do it. Obviously, we'll call it a meet and greet and not watching anything happening on TV. You can
Because
watch
maybe my
something
ex
there may be
colleagues
a
will become
television
maybe my ex
there.
colleagues won't be super bitter about this and try to put the kibosh on something fun or that
Yeah.
would. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Matthew Bure says every season after this one is gravy. Come on. That's right. Caulfield
Hey.
back next year, 55 goals.
However, someone mentioned it earlier in the chat, and it's either Trinker or Trizak. I can't identify between them because they're so. I'm just sorry. I'll lay off them. Cole Caulfield might finish the season as the Habs leading scorer, and we were talking about sad stats earlier. That is sad, but what is not sad is no joke, and I'm gonna get it real serious here real quick. Is that it's raw here. We're a little, nothing's polished and we just have fun and everyone's kind of embraced that even when we make mistakes, when we say stupid stuff. And the people have been so supportive because we know at the end of it, and this is what the Montreal Canadiens get wrong. I'll say it right now because I know this from the back, is that sports are supposed to be fun. And if you don't respect your fans, it's so important because they're the ones that actually are the only reason that we get to do this, that the Habs get to do this, that the NHL exists. You're not going to have a good time. So here we're having fun, and sports get way too complicated when it comes to betting, to analytics, and these are all things that I love. But at the core of it, you have to have fun. And the reason we've had fun this year is because of the people in the chat poking fun at us, poking fun at themselves. It's been a really good vibe, and it's been healthy. And it's been it's the people in the chat have contributed into a healthy workplace, which I wasn't sure was possible, So for me, the change that I've made this year has helped my mental health, has really helped me get my confidence back as well. Just because some of the stuff I heard from my ex-employer was just so mean and like just toxic that I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue in hockey. I'll be perfectly honest. Like I was about to put an end to it because I was just kind of sick of the machine and just the grossness that is the NHL. But the people here have renewed my love of the game, and I am forever thankful for that.
And I'll reiterate the same thing. Like, coming to this show after, like, the Canadiens have won 53 games of 162 that they've played.
That's like in baseball, that's not even a great batting average in baseball. You're hitting 320, you're like, okay, he's good, but
it's not been great. All right. When Caulfield went down, like every time I think, oh, the atmosphere is going to be rough in the comments, the people who come here every game come through. We find a way to bring the positive, to have fun, and so much of that is on you folks in the stream chat talking to us live. Honestly, there's no better feeling after watching a terrible game than knowing that I get to come and do this. And
I look forward to it. It's not work. Yeah. It's not work.
John Paul Murray says, Mark, where did you used to work?
At a big building on 1260 Saint Antoine. It's this big building full of toxic dicks. I'll be honest, right there. No, I used to work for the Montreal Canadiens, and I worked in the marketing department where you and I don't want to get into all that, but it's you don't treat fans with respect, and that really bothered me. Here, it's a completely different thing. Our word from above, from our bosses, is build a fun, supportive community. Like, our goal isn't to get the money or the numbers, it's to make sure that fans are comfortable and having fun. So it's just such a change for me for what my end goal is. And obviously there's good communication, it's clear, these are all big changes for me, and it's been just such a positive change in my life. So I didn't want to make it about me being bitter, even though I'm super bitter and I can be a very petty person. It was more about the podcast kind of renewing my lifelong love for hockey, because when it comes down to it, I run through all the numbers, the analytics. It's really about losing in a group. That's what sports are. And then eventually maybe you win, but it's learning how to lose together, and you kind of throw away all the seriousness and you kind of have fun with it. And that's really what we've built here. And I'm just really lucky to be part of something cool.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And being able to help the other streams get going and hire people to bring this same vibe to other markets, it's just a fantastic thing. And I'm just trying to see if there's any more questions here. Claire says she can't wait for you to write your tell-all book.
It would be the worst. It'd be terrible. I'm telling you, it's just like bringing up logical arguments and then just getting absolutely ignored for 2 months at a time. I'll tell you right now, for an entire month, I didn't report in and they didn't notice. So that goes to show how on the button it was there. But here, constant communication. And one of the main things that Andrew always tells us is, let's get this person involved. And I can't wait to see what Claire has to say. And I can't wait to see what King of the North has to say. And to me, that's just such a huge, amazing change. Like, it's really cool that the people at top that are holding, that are making the decisions, that's what they're going for. And it's not just talk. That's literally our goal, is to build supportive communities. So it's amazing. It's fun.
100%. Sharon in the chat was a little bit upset at us at the beginning of the show, said that we didn't know what we were talking about. I choose to believe that you're talking about the Taylor Swift thing, but I know
and
thing.
Fair enough.
Apparently she was upset that you said that the Leafs used their first wave power play. I guess it was their second wave, but
anyways, they lost their minds as the Habs. It was about
a lot more than that.
Yeah, exactly. They absolutely lost their minds in a game where they should have been laughing. That's what I was talking about, Sharon. But hey, Sharon, I love you too. Even if you say I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's fairly accurate. That's very, very accurate. I still love you.
Yeah, she says, good to hear. Love SDPN, hate to spread hate, but I just felt like that was very biased. Listen, Sharon, it is biased. This is a Montreal Canadiens show. It's not a Toronto show. So 100% what we say is going to be biased.
Yeah, but has anyone brought up an argument against it, or they're like, no?
Or they're just like, no, we're wrong. I mean, Toronto fans are allowed to feel that way. That's fine. I don't begrudge them anything. That's what being a fan is all about, right? Mm-hmm. Bakowin says, nice to see the guy at the top share his picks from from the season suite tonight. I don't know what.
Oh, I think Adam was in
Adam.
That. Yeah. Money. He's got the nice seats.
Yeah, he brought Jesse to the game. I think he has like some sort of sponsorship deal where he gets to be in the executive suite or something.
Oh,
for a good chunk of games.
We didn't mention this today, but Kay, who's been our MVP all year, let's be perfectly honest, like just de facto producer, we're gonna give her credits for this year, mentions Carey Price being there. It's funny how quickly the good memories come back when Carey Price is just in the picture. But also the other side of it is pretty clear here. I know a lot of people are holding out hope, but Carey Price is not going to come back to play for the NHL. So, remember the good times in his case.
When his wife announced they were moving back to BC, Like that was
And he's not going to
writings
walk
on the
all.
wall.
I wouldn't walk away from $25 million. You know what I mean?
No.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and I saw there was a Toronto person that I follow that was saying like, I can't believe the Canadians played this poor defensively in front of Carey Price, and I was like, he's used to it. Like, if
Well,
anybody is used to it, he's used to
the
it.
look that Carey Price had as he saw Samuel Montembeault, because it was maybe 1-0 at that point, but he knew the shitstorm that was coming. The Leafs are going to score like 7 goals on the goalie who was probably the first star. So, yeah, Carey Price knows all too well what those kind of games when you go in against a team that's much better, like the Leafs. He knew it. He knew. He's the opposite of Jon Snow. He knows everything.
100%. There's that knowing look. Yeah. I will say, congratulations to the fan base that I didn't see a single tweet blaming Sam Montembeault, and that's usually something that crops up when a goalie allows 7 goals. But I think everyone has come to the realization that he's been the MVP of the season, really. I mean,
Yeah.
you could say Nick Suzuki as well, I think, and that would be completely fair.
No.
But Sam Montembeault has just been heads and shoulders above everyone else
Just
in terms
statistically
of overall
value
impact. Yeah.
He's led to more wins. But what Nick Suzuki, the cool part is that he's producing with, no offense, but like it reminds you of when Koivu was playing with Oleg Petrov and Brian Savage there, and he's like, that's the best lineup. Like Suzuki is producing in a really rough situation, and there's been some I don't want to get negative, but there's been some criticism about his play this year, and that's lazy analysis, man. Nick Suzuki's doing pretty darn good in a tire fire of a team. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and Trevor Koteff says that Mike Matheson on the Leafs putting their big guns out on the power play when the score was 6-1. He says, I think you're a sore loser if you look at that and go, why are you putting that unit out? I love that.
I'm all about always go with your best unit all the way to the end. Yeah. To me, by the way, what we were talking about was the reaction to the penalty. It wasn't the power play unit. It was the penalty when Keith lost his mind there.
I think you mentioned that they put the first unit out there, but it
was because people were talking about it on Twitter.
They did, right?
Yeah.
Not
who cares?
The big deal.
Who cares?
But yeah, it doesn't matter. I think that kind of stuff. It's not like we need to embrace some hatred in this league.
Yes, that's why Brad Marchand is so. We need more villains. Like we have Brad Marchand. He's hardly a villain in other sports, but here we're like, oh my god, he's so mean because he said that guy's a jerk. Like, man, we lack villains in here. And I will also say this: if you don't put your best players out against me and I'm coaching, I'm pissed at you because that's more insulting.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely disrespectful.
You're taking a knee essentially against me, being like, okay, you're not worth trying against. So yeah, no. 50-0, put your best power play unit on there. I don't give a shit.
With that said, if you put Mike Pizzetta out there in the shootout, that's trying to win, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
1-for-1.
Oh, absolutely. No, exactly. One thing that Kay mentions here, and it's really important, I think, is how Nick Suzuki held it together as a captain. Don't forget, this was his inaugural year, right? As a captain, he wasn't. Or no, was he captain last year? I lost all.
No, this was his first year as captain.
Time has lost all meaning in the pandemic, but this is a team that could have been ripped apart right from the beginning when my buddy, I already forgot his name, Pierre Gervais, who's amazing. He's probably hunting somewhere, not giving a crap. But when he essentially wrote his tell-all book, it wasn't even that bad, by the way. He could have made it. Like, Montreal has a really sordid history, and if a real tell-all book would have destroyed it, but that's not what it was. Suzuki held it together. He held it together by losing all his teammates. He held it together when half the lineup was being showcased to being traded. He held it together with no power play, like a rookie coach. Like he really did, in my opinion, weather the storm, and that's all you can ask for in such a tough year.
100%. And Buddy Oaks says about the power play thing for the Leafs. He said you could also look at it as they're going into the playoffs. They need the PP to be firing against Tampa. 100%. I agree with that. 100%.
Power plays win series, man.
Yeah, Sebastian Jackson mentions that Connor Bedard has 11 goals and 19 points in less than 6 games in the playoffs. Can he be a Montreal Canadian, please? Although the downside would be those $100 Blues tickets at the end of the year in a lost year are going to be $500.
Well, I'll say this. I like, as just a bitter person in general, which is really what I do best, I don't want Chicago or Columbus to get it just because, and I know they did better in the tank, but it was just such a blatant, gross, disgusting tank that it was almost an insult to the sport. You know what I mean?
At least Columbus was like partially due to injury, right? Chicago was embarrassing. I feel like Arizona's was pretty embarrassing.
Anaheim was, but Anaheim, they also got injuries, but they gutted their team pretty much there. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean Anaheim also just got there, had a straight mismanagement, just like the Canadiens did, right?
Well, that's the
So
other part is that
there's a lot of that.
like the Habs won. That's the other part when I get Canadiens fans are so obsessed by this and they're so angry and but you're getting a good player between 1 to 5. They also won the freaking draft lottery and picked first overall last year. Can we I know maybe Slavkovsky was a disappointing season in terms of development. That's the fault of the Habs, not Slavkovsky, but they still picked first overall, right? So you're getting a little greedy when you're demanding back-to-back first overalls.
Yeah, Sharon asks what we thought about Weidman's quote. We covered that earlier in the show, Sharon, and we weren't that
Terrible.
impressed with it.
Why? And here's what I will say, Sharon.
We understand it just in coming right out of the emotions of the game.
But he was embarrassed by himself. Yeah, he was embarrassed and he was throwing it out. Everybody loved it. That was the wrong thing for Weidman to do. Absolutely. You know what's funny? Mathieu Barrette said Captain Bitter Dumont, but they're like delayed by 7 minutes. So as I was saying, I'm really good at being bitter. He threw like it hit again. So yes, absolutely. Pettiness is where I'm a Viking. that's I'm at my best.
Yeah, don't worry about being late to the conversation, Sharon. We'll repeat stuff if we need to. It's not a big deal. We're here for you all.
We also love when we have other fans in and like oftentimes people be like, why, how dare you say that? But it's to get banter going too. I will say this, and I've always said this before before the internet even existed, which sadly I was watching hockey then. A good Toronto Maple Leafs team makes for a good NHL. So that's the I look at them and I want them to succeed in that sense because I want hockey to grow and get attention. And the main team to do that is the Toronto Maple Leafs, no matter what. So
yeah, 100%. All right, shall we close this out, Mark? Because we've gone. I think this is the longest show since Adam and I did the Hot Ones challenge. And if there's anybody who has any questions, obviously throw a question out there, and we will stay around because
although we did a little but still. So his son and I'm such a good guy for peer pressure because Dylan was just like, go daddy, go get some hot sauce for Mark, and then finally got to the 10. But I don't think I'm going to be doing hot ones because I would be super boring. I'm pretty sure I would just be eating wings. However, I got the 10. It tasted okay, maybe got a little bit teary. What Andrew pointed out is that eating 10 wings in a row with hot sauce would probably build it up a bit more. So I only had 4 tacos in a row. But I don't think I'd be boring you'd be watching me eating wings, man. So probably not going to do that. I do want to thank there's too many people to mention, but again, thank you so much for being patient while we worked out the kinks with technical stuff when we aren't always at our best, when we're trying to find stuff to talk about in a rough season.
When there's a 10:30 start Eastern time.
I had a show with our good friend Patrick Bexel, Zeb Habs, and it started at 2:30 and we had over 100 people in the chat. We don't deserve that. There's part of me with every show that ends.
We do, but yes. Yeah.
No, but seriously, every show ends and I'm like, why the hell do we have these people hanging out with us? Why? This is crazy how lucky we are. So when we say all this stuff, it's not just on the air and it's not just lip service. Me and Andrew talk about this at length. The best part about our show isn't me or Andrew or any of our guests, although our guests have been absolutely amazing. It is the Habs community, and we're going to build on that. We're going to keep making it fun, and I think we just have such a solid, supportive, inclusive community that we really don't deserve it, but we're happy we have it.
Absolutely. All right. What was the other questions here? There was actually a good one. I thought I lost it there. Asked before it got buried.
Well, someone has to do the Leafs beat the Lightning. I think right now the Leafs. This is statistically, if you're going to do it, this is the year. Lightning are kind of tripping up at the end there.
Yeah, the Lightning do look weak, but I can't bring myself to believe in the Leafs when they act the way that they do, the mental softness.
Yeah, but then you look at Nylander. Maybe it's Nylander one game. Maybe it's Martin. Okay, no, too much Leafs praise. Too much Leafs praise. Wilf Payman was their best player in Leafs history. There you go. You gotta add some haterade there.
I think if you would have asked me about the Leafs before they made the trades with Washington and Vancouver, I would have said, yes, this is the year that they win.
Yeah, I didn't love the Shen
acquisition. I love the Jake McCabe ad. I think the Ryan O'Reilly ad is phenomenal.
Your third line center is Ryan O'Reilly?
Yeah, but they made themselves worse on the defensive side. Luke Shen is not good. He was as bad tonight as Edmondson. It's just the Canadians couldn't take advantage of it. And Gustafsson, I know he had a couple points, but
it's because he's a cheap contract. Gustafsson was pure cap hit, but yeah, this is the year, in my opinion, that they move on. They have to and I will say this real quick. This is burning me up inside because we complimented the Leafs way too much tonight. Dubas has done the right thing, holding strong to his core, even though a lot of teams would have blown it up. That's been the right call. And even if they lose in the first round this year, I wouldn't change much. I know that sounds crazy, but the talent is there, man. And hockey, it's so hard to get to that 7 games. So that being said, hopefully it's just chaos in the first round all around.
Yeah, Trizek also asked who are the guests for the remaining shows of the year. Mark is going to be on for the last 2 with me.
Sorry, disappointment for everybody.
Yeah, we're kind of like keeping it in house, and for the last episode of the season, where we're going to be raising money for, I believe the decision has been made for the ABC Collective.
Cool.
We're going to be doing that. Like all the Game Over shows are going to do the same thing, trying to raise as much money for ABC Collective in response to some of the shitty players who've decided not.
We're going to focus on the positive, and we're going to keep all that going. And because we're such a supportive community, that's what's kind of directing how we're going to do this. So we're just going to make it more positive, more love everyone, accept everyone. That's the goal here.
Yeah. For a second, I thought you were saying like, accept this person.
Oh yeah. Except the, yeah.
Except the Maple Leafs. No. But also Lori Bennett's going to be on the last show of the year as well. Everybody loves Lori, so we'll bring her on.
So do I really? Should I? I mean, that's like having
you be on for the fundraiser.
Oh yeah, but that's like having a nice like a filet mignon and beside it like an old piece of roadkill there. Lori is I'm not even in her league. I'm not even in the stratosphere of Lori. And we've been really lucky as well to have. I know I rant on, and it's almost like I have a hard time closing up everything nicely. But our guests have been great this year. Whether it's Owen Beck or Rachel Dory, or there's just been so many cool guests. We've been really lucky with that too.
We really have. It's been fantastic, and I can't wait to get back to it next year and this summer. Can't wait to meet some people. And thanks, Sharon, for sticking around, even though I thought that we were too biased and didn't know what we were talking about.
But she gave us a chance. Sharon gave us a chance, and that's what you need.
That's what we love about the people who do stick around here, even when we do say stupid stuff, because we do. So thank you so much. Would you sign Janot from Tampa Bay July 1? Probably not. I don't think it fits what the Canadians need. But thanks so much for watching.
And hold on. Before we go, though,
okay.
What we do here, though, is as soon as Claire comes in the chat, we always say, hi, Claire. And before the show ends, because Andrew's going to take us home, I got to say, bye, Claire. Bye.
All right. So thanks to everybody who's in the chat. Matthias XL, Winder, Trinka, 22 Paper Dolls, Kay, Claire, Dina PM, John Paul Murray,
Dina
Sharon, first time.
So many amazing people.
Best
Brian
time,
was in
Buddy
here earlier.
Oak.
King of the North has been in here a lot.
Matthew Barrett.
And I've got some. I always throw in a few francophone things here and there that I think almost everyone misses, and they get it. And I think Barrette got the calme tes tatons earlier, because that's a fun French. That's a fun one. So I do it for my francophones.
Yeah, Baka Wind again. There's tons of people who showed up tonight. We really appreciate you.
Buddy Yoke has been cool as a Leafs fan too, like, which is pretty rare for
pretty rare. No, I feel like Leafs fans actually have a high percentage of cool people. It's just that
because also you can't insult them or hurt them because they're already dead inside from the last 10 years of like pain from the Leafs.
I mean,
it's like Arsenal
makes
fans.
Fun of the Leafs more than Leafs fans, right? So they've already heard it all. Thanks, Sebastian Jackson, as well.
Love Sebastian.
One of our favorites.
Big fan. John Paul here. John Paul is here too. Yeah.
Jake Macanui. How would I say that properly?
Macanui.
Yeah.
Or Macanui. Yeah.
McDavid to the Leafs for sure, he says. I mean, after Austin Matthews leaves for Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. I think ending on a Toronto Slam is a good way to go. We've been way too complimentary to Toronto. Way too much.
We got to be much more vicious. We can't pull a Michel Therrien here. We're going to start ripping him to shred. All right. Thanks for everybody for joining us here. We'll be back on Wednesday, the first of a back-to-back set to end the year, because the NHL is smart. You know, they just love doing.
You know what they get really right is scheduling.
They just really nail it. Scheduling and jersey manufacturers.
That is absolutely right. Well, hey, at least I got to wear my Pride shirt, which was Fanatics, for the last show, and that's it. I don't think like it literally, I was putting in my bag and it just poof into dust. So yeah, I hope Fanatics doesn't try to sponsor us. No, I don't think they will at this point, right?
I think we've ruined that for the show, for the for the whole network. All right.
But if you want some proper merch, you go to SDPN and you can get your merch there. Quality stuff.
SDPNshop.ca. All right, folks. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.